Hey everyone, before we begin, I have one small request. If emotional love stories are your thing, stories that evoke feelings, thoughts, and a genuine sense of connection, please subscribe. It's the best way to support this channel and ensure you never miss a story. The conference room felt like a courtroom as Blake Thornton stood at the head of the table, his ice blue eyes scanning the quarterly reports displayed on a massive screen. 36 years old, $8 billion to his name, and absolute silence whenever he entered a room. He didn't need to raise his voice. People feared him because he was always 3 steps ahead, always watching, always calculating. His senior executives sat rigid in their chairs, waiting for his verdict on their proposals like prisoners awaiting sentencing. Next quarter, we move forward with expansion, Blake said, his voice smooth and cold. That's all. He closed his tablet with a decisive click, and 20 executives exhaled in relief. Another meeting survived. They filed out quickly, nobody making eye contact, nobody lingering. 23 floors below, Jasmine Reed checked her reflection in her phone screen one more time. Her box braids were perfect, her blazer pressed, her smile bright despite the nervous flutter in her stomach. This was it, the internship that would change everything. She'd beaten out 2,000 applicants for this marketing position, and she wasn't going to waste it. Her little brother Marcus was counting on her. They both were. "You got this, Jazz," she whispered to herself, smoothing down her blazer. The scholarship money from this internship would cover Marcus's SAT prep courses, maybe even his first semester of community college. Their mother would have been proud. 2 years since the funeral, and Jasmine still felt the weight of that responsibility every single day. The elevator ride to the 15th floor felt eternal. Jasmine clutched her new employee folder, mentally reviewing everything she'd memorized about Thornton Industries. $8 billion tech empire. Revolutionary AI development. Corporate culture focused on innovation and excellence. She'd done her homework, but when the elevator doors opened, she wasn't on the 15th floor. The polished marble and floor-to-ceiling windows screamed executive territory. A harried-looking woman in a sharp suit grabbed Jasmine's arm before she could press the elevator button again. "Thank God, you're here. We're already 10 minutes behind schedule. Come on, quickly." The woman was already pulling her down the hallway. "Wait, I think there's been a mistake. I'm supposed to report to." "No time. The quarterly vision meeting starts in 2 minutes. And Mr. Thornton absolutely hates when people are late." The woman thrust a tablet into Jasmine's hands and pushed open a massive oak door. Jasmine found herself in a boardroom that probably cost more than her entire apartment building. 20 people in expensive suits sat around a table that could have hosted a small country's peace treaty. Every single face turned toward her, and the expressions ranged from confusion to something that looked oddly like pity. "Take a seat anywhere," the woman whispered, then disappeared. Jasmine slid into an empty chair near the middle of the table, trying to look like she belonged there. Maybe this was one of those innovative companies where interns sat in on executive meetings. She'd read about places like that. Google did it, right? Or was it Facebook? The door at the far end of the room opened, and the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Blake Thornton walked in, and Jasmine understood immediately why the room had gone silent. He moved like a predator, all controlled power and cold precision. 36 years old, according to her research, but his ice blue eyes looked ancient. He wore a suit that probably cost more than her car, and he didn't so much as glance at the assembled executives as he took his position at the head of the table. "Let's begin," Blake said, his voice smooth and dangerous. He pressed a button, and the lights dimmed. A presentation materialized on the wall-sized screen behind him. Project Sentinel, 5 years in development. The future of personal AI assistants. Jasmine watched as Blake walked them through the most impressive piece of technology she'd ever seen. An AI assistant that learned, adapted, predicted user needs before they even articulated them. The interface was sleek, almost beautiful. Revolutionary didn't even begin to cover it. Around the table, executives murmured their approval. "Brilliant, Mr. Thornton. Absolutely revolutionary. The market will be disrupted entirely." Each comment sounded rehearsed, performative. Jasmine frowned. studying the interface more closely on her tablet. Something was bothering her. She zoomed in on one of the demo screens, then another. The color scheme, the button placement, the voice command structure. Her frown deepened. Blake was wrapping up his presentation, satisfaction evident in the set of his shoulders. Production begins next quarter. Any questions? Jasmine's hand went up before she could stop herself. The room went completely silent. Every head swiveled toward her, and the expressions were no longer just pitiful. They were horrified. Blake's eyes locked onto her, and Jasmine felt the full weight of his attention. It was like being studied by a shark. And you are? Jasmine Reed, sir. I just started today. She smiled, trying to project confidence she didn't entirely feel. This interface is absolutely beautiful, and the technology is incredible. But I have some concerns about the accessibility design. Someone at the table made a strangled sound. Blake's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those cold eyes. Concerns? Yes, sir. Jasmine pulled up her tablet. Her marketing degree and 2 years of volunteer work with disability advocacy groups suddenly feeling very relevant. The color scheme uses red-green differentials for important notifications. Roughly 8% of men have red-green color blindness. They wouldn't be able to distinguish critical alerts from standard ones. Blake tilted his head slightly, like a wolf hearing an unusual sound. Jasmine continued, warming to her topic despite the deafening silence. And the voice recognition system. My little brother has dyslexia, so I've done a lot of research on assistive technology. Studies show that current voice recognition AI has a 35% higher failure rate with African American voices compared to white American voices. The acoustic modeling is trained primarily on standardized American English, which doesn't account for dialect variation or cultural speech patterns. Did your development team test across diverse demographic groups? She looked up from her tablet to find 21 pairs of eyes staring at her. Blake Thornton hadn't moved, hadn't blinked. The silence stretched so long that Jasmine started to wonder if she'd accidentally frozen time. Then Blake spoke, his voice soft and absolutely terrifying. Everyone out, except you. The executives couldn't leave fast enough. Chairs scraped against marble. Tablets were clutched like lifelines, and within 30 seconds, Jasmine was alone with Blake Thornton. The door clicked shut with a finality that made her stomach drop. Blake circled the table slowly, his footsteps deliberate. He stopped directly across from her, placing both palms flat on the polished surface. Do you know who I am? Jasmine swallowed hard but held his gaze. Blake Thornton, you're a senior executive here, right? Maybe VP of product development. Something dangerous flickered across his face. It might have been amusement, but it looked more like a predator spotting unexpected prey. Something like that. He straightened, adjusting his cufflinks with precise movements. Tell me, Jasmine Reed, who just started today, do you make it a habit of criticizing projects in front of entire leadership teams? I wasn't criticizing, Jasmine said, finding her voice. I was offering feedback. Isn't that what innovative companies want? Fresh perspectives. Fresh perspectives. Blake repeated the words like he was tasting something foreign. He walked to the windows, gazing out at the city sprawling below them. 5 years. I've spent 5 years developing Project Sentinel. Hundreds of millions of dollars. The best engineers money can buy. And you think you found flaws in 15 minutes? I don't think, sir. I know. Jasmine stood, channeling every ounce of courage she possessed. Her mother hadn't raised a coward. Those aren't minor issues. They're fundamental accessibility problems that would exclude millions of potential users. And if you're trying to revolutionize personal AI, excluding millions of people seems counterproductive. Blake turned from the window, and Jasmine could have sworn she saw the ghost of a smile. You have 1 week. I'm sorry, what? You have 1 week to fix everything you just criticized. He moved toward the door, then paused. My private office. Tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Don't be late, Miss Reed. Wait, I don't understand. Fix it. I'm a marketing intern. I'm not a developer, and I definitely don't have access to. You do now. Blake pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. Check your email. You've been granted full access to Project Sentinel's development files. 7 a.m., Miss Reed. Prove you're not just talk. He left, and Jasmine stood alone in the empty boardroom, her phone buzzing with notification after notification. Security clearances. File access. A calendar invitation for tomorrow morning with the subject line, Project Sentinel Revision. She called her best friend Keisha the moment she got to the elevator. Girl, how's the internship? Keisha's voice was bright with excitement. I think I just challenged the CEO to his face, Jasmine whispered, watching the floor numbers descend. Keisha, I didn't know. Nobody told me who he was. Wait, back up. The CEO? Blake Thornton? The Blake Thornton who made Forbes' most feared executives list 3 years running. Jasmine's stomach dropped further. Most feared. Jazz. There are literal Reddit threads about people's nightmare experiences with him. He once bought a competitor's company just to shut it down because their CEO insulted him at a conference. He's brilliant, he's ruthless, and he's basically untouchable. Keisha paused. What exactly did you say to him? I told him his 5-year passion project had accessibility problems. Oh my God, you're going to get fired on your first day. But Jasmine didn't get fired. She spent that entire evening in her tiny apartment, Marcus doing homework at the kitchen table while she pored over the Project Sentinel files on her laptop. The more she dug, the more problems she found. It wasn't that the technology was bad. It was incredible, actually, revolutionary, just like Blake had said. But it was designed in a bubble by people who never had to consider barriers, never had to think about who might be left out. What are you working on? Marcus asked, stretching. He was 16, lanky, with their mother's eyes and their father's stubborn chin. Trying not to get fired, Jasmine muttered, making another note. How's the geometry homework? Done. Unlike you, I actually sleep. He came over, peering at her screen. Whoa, that's some fancy AI stuff. This for your internship. Something like that. She pulled up the voice recognition data. Hey, Marcus, you remember how Mom used to talk? The way she'd say certain words. Yeah, why? Say tomorrow the way she would. Marcus grinned, slipping into their mother's Louisiana accent. Tomorrow, baby. We'll do it tomorrow. Jasmine played the voice recognition demo, inputting Marcus's pronunciation. The AI couldn't understand it. Error message after error message. She recorded herself saying it in her own careful, code-switched professional voice. Perfect recognition. That's messed up, Marcus said quietly. Yeah, it really is. Jasmine added it to her growing list of problems. By midnight, she had 17 pages of documentation, each issue carefully cited with research and data to back it up. She showed up at Blake's office at 6:45 a.m., coffee in one hand and her laptop in the other. His assistant, a woman named Patricia who looked like she'd seen things that would break normal people, actually looked surprised. You're early. Nobody's ever early for Mr. Thornton. I'm extremely motivated not to fail, Jasmine said honestly. Patricia's expression softened just slightly. Good luck, honey. You're going to need it. Blake's office was exactly what Jasmine expected. Massive, minimalist, expensive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, abstract art that probably cost 6 figures on the walls, and a desk that looked like a sculpture. Blake sat behind it, already immersed in something on his computer. He didn't look up when she entered. Sir, Jasmine ventured after a full minute of silence. Sit. He gestured to the chair across from him without raising his eyes from his screen. Show me what you found. Jasmine opened her laptop, pulling up her presentation. I documented 17 major accessibility issues, each with supporting research and proposed solutions. Starting with the color scheme problem I mentioned yesterday. I read your email. Blake finally looked at her, and Jasmine realized she'd apparently sent him everything at 2 a.m. without remembering doing so. Your analysis was thorough, annoyingly thorough. Thank you. It wasn't a compliment, but his tone suggested otherwise. Walk me through your solutions. And Miss Reed, don't waste my time with theory. I want actionable changes. And so began the strangest week of Jasmine's life. They worked 14-hour days. Blake would arrive at dawn, Jasmine shortly after, and they'd remain locked in his office until the cleaning crew came through at night. He was demanding, perfectionist, and absolutely ruthless about inefficiency. But he listened. Actually listened. No, that won't work, Blake said on the third day, studying her redesigned interface. The button placement creates too much cognitive load. Users will have to think about where to click. But it's more accessible this way, Jasmine argued, pulling up her research. See, if we place the primary action here, accessibility shouldn't require sacrifice of intuitive design. That's lazy thinking. Blake grabbed a stylus, sketching directly on her tablet. What if we restructure the entire navigation paradigm? Gesture-based primary controls with voice backup and visual confirmation for every action. Jasmine studied his sketch. It was brilliant. That could work. But the gesture recognition would need to account for fine motor control issues. Parkinson's, arthritis, cerebral palsy. Obviously, Blake was already coding, his fingers flying across his keyboard. Adjustable sensitivity thresholds with machine learning adaptation. The AI learns the user's specific motor patterns over time. And for users who can't use gestures at all, full voice control with multiple accent models. You mentioned the African-American voice recognition problem. What about non-native English speakers? Regional dialects? Blake pulled up a database. We'll need training data from at least 50 demographic categories. Jasmine blinked. This was the feared CEO, the man who supposedly crushed people for fun. He was taking her feedback and multiplying it, making it better, pushing further than she'd even considered. I have a friend who does linguistics research at Howard, Jasmine offered. She might have access to diverse voice sample databases. Contact her. Today. Blake made a note. What else? They fell into a rhythm. Jasmine would identify a problem, Blake would architect a solution, and together they'd refine it until it was perfect. She learned he survived on black coffee and apparently didn't require sleep. He learned she stress-ate gummy bears and couldn't function before 7 a.m. without caffeine. Your coffee order is absurd, Blake said on the fourth morning, watching her add cream and sugar to her cup. Your coffee order is missing joy, Jasmine countered. It's just bitter sadness in a cup. It's efficient. It's depressing. She pushed her cup toward him. Try it. Blake stared at the coffee like she'd offered him poison. Absolutely not. Come on, scary CEO man. Live a little. Something flickered in his expression. He picked up the cup, took a careful sip, and his face went through a remarkable journey of emotions. That's not entirely terrible. High praise from Blake Thornton. Jasmine grinned. There's hope for you yet. Don't push your luck, Miss Reed. But she noticed he made his coffee slightly less black the next morning. They talked about more than work. Late nights bread conversation. And Jasmine found herself telling him about Marcus, about her mother's death, about the weight of being 24 and responsible for a teenage brother's future. He's smart, Jasmine said, pulling up a photo on her phone. Smarter than me, honestly. But the dyslexia makes standardized testing hell. He deserves opportunities, you know? Real ones. Blake studied the photo with unusual intensity. You're a good sister. I'm a terrified sister. What if I mess this up? What if the internship money isn't enough? What if? You won't. Blake's certainty was absolute. Failure isn't in your vocabulary. I watch you work. Something warm bloomed in Jasmine's chest. Was that almost a compliment? It was an observation, right? Very different things. But she smiled anyway. Blake revealed little about himself, but Jasmine gathered pieces. An empty penthouse. No emergency contacts in his phone. Holidays spent working. He'd built an empire, but hollowed himself out in the process. Don't you have friends? Jasmine asked on the sixth night, watching him answer emails at 11 p.m. People you just hang out with? I have business associates. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Blake's hands stilled on the keyboard. I have everything I need. You have nothing that matters. The words came out softer than Jasmine intended. Blake, when's the last time someone asked how you were doing and actually cared about the answer? The silence stretched long enough that Jasmine thought she'd overstepped. Then Blake said quietly, I don't remember. Her heart cracked a little. This powerful, brilliant, terrifying man was completely alone, and he didn't even seem to realize how wrong that was. Well, I'm asking, how are you doing? Blake looked at her like she was speaking a foreign language. I don't understand the question. It's not complicated. How are you? Not the CEO you, not the billionaire you. Just Blake. How are you doing? He opened his mouth, closed it, then turned back to his computer. We should focus on the voice recognition protocols. Jasmine let it go, but something had shifted between them. She noticed the way his eyes followed her when she moved around the office. The way he'd started having her favorite tea stocked in his private kitchen. The way he'd ask her opinion on things that had nothing to do with Project Sentinel. On the 7th day, they finished. Every accessibility issue resolved, every demographic considered, every barrier removed. The new Project Sentinel was everything the original had been and more. It was inclusive, intuitive, revolutionary in ways Blake's initial version had only dreamed of being. We did it, Jasmine breathed, staring at the final simulation. Blake, this is incredible. You did it. Blake was watching her instead of the screen. I would have launched the inferior version, excluded millions of people, been too arrogant to see the flaws. You weren't arrogant. You just needed someone who'd lived different experiences. I needed you. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning that had nothing to do with software development. Jasmine's pulse quickened. They were standing close, closer than professional required. The office felt smaller suddenly, intimate in the dim lighting. Blake's ice blue eyes had warmed to something that made her breath catch. Jasmine. Her name sounded different in his voice. Softer, almost reverent. Yeah. She barely whispered it. His phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Blake stepped back, his professional mask slamming into place. That's the board. I need to take this. Jasmine nodded, trying to calm her racing heart. I should go anyway. Marcus has a late game tonight. Of course. Blake's voice was carefully neutral. Good work this week, Miss Reed. Miss Reed. Back to formal. Back to safe. Jasmine gathered her things, hyper-aware of his presence behind her. At the door, she paused. Blake. Yes. Thank you. For listening. For caring about getting it right. Enjoying the story so far? Make sure you subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter of the adventure. He looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Thank you for making me see what I was missing. The next 3 weeks blurred together in the best possible way. Blake kept Jasmine on Project Sentinel, promoting her from intern to junior consultant with a salary that made her gasp when she saw the offer letter. She could afford Marcus's SAT prep now, could breathe a little easier about their rent. But more than the money, more than the career opportunity, there was Blake. They fell into an easy partnership that extended beyond work hours. He started leaving his office door open when she was around. Started smiling occasionally, these small, genuine expressions that transformed his entire face. Started asking about her day, about Marcus, about her life outside these walls. How was the game? Blake asked one morning, and Jasmine realized he'd remembered Marcus's basketball schedule. They won by 12. Marcus had 15 points. She pulled out her phone, showing him a video. That's him, number 23. Blake watched the clip with surprising focus. He's good. Quick reflexes, excellent court awareness. You know basketball? I know competition. And your brother has instincts you can't teach. Blake handed back her phone. You should be proud. I am. Jasmine hesitated. He asks about you sometimes. About my mysterious boss who keeps me working late. What do you tell him? That you're demanding, brilliant, and slightly terrifying. She grinned. But maybe not as scary as everyone thinks. Don't spread that rumor. I have a reputation to maintain, right? The ice-cold CEO who definitely doesn't remember my brother's game schedule or stock my favorite tea. Blake's ears turned slightly red, and Jasmine felt a rush of affection so strong it startled her. When had this happened? When had Blake Thornton stopped being her intimidating boss and become someone who made her heart race? It was 2 a.m. on a Friday when everything changed. They were alone in his office, working through final testing protocols. The building was empty except for security, the city lights glittering through the windows like stars. I can't believe we're actually doing this, Jasmine said, watching the simulation run perfectly through scenario after scenario. 3 weeks ago, this project was going to exclude millions of people. Now it's going to help them. 3 weeks ago, I was about to make the biggest mistake of my career. Blake stood beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. You saved me from that. I just pointed out some problems. You did more than that. His voice had gone quiet, intense. You made me question everything. My assumptions, my methods, my entire approach to innovation. Nobody's done that in years. Nobody's dared. Jasmine turned to face him. Maybe because everyone's too scared of you. Are you scared of me? She should say yes. Should maintain professional boundaries. Should remember he was Blake Thornton, Billionaire CEO, and she was Jasmine Reed, a girl from Southeast DC who was still figuring out how to pay rent. But standing here in the dim office, seeing vulnerability in those ice blue eyes, she couldn't lie. No, she whispered. I'm not scared of you at all. Blake reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away. His hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing across her skin with a tenderness that made her knees weak. You should be. I'm not good at this, Jasmine. At people. At feelings. I'll probably mess this up spectacularly. Mess what up? This. And he kissed her. The world tilted. Blake kissed like he did everything else, with complete focus and devastating precision. His hand slid into her hair, gentle but possessive, and Jasmine melted into him. She'd never been kissed like this, like she was precious and essential and the only thing that mattered. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Blake rested his forehead against hers. I wanted to do that for 2 weeks. Just 2 weeks. Jasmine's hands had somehow found their way to his chest, feeling his heart race under her palms. I've been thinking about it since day 7. Day 7? That's very specific. You brought me coffee. The right order, with cream and sugar. Nobody remembers details like that unless they care. She smiled against his lips. You were trying to be smooth about it, but Blake, you ordered it for the fancy place 3 blocks away. The one that takes 20 minutes round trip. I don't know what you're talking about. You left during our morning meeting for exactly 23 minutes. Blake pulled back slightly, and his expression was so unguarded it hurt to see. You pay attention. Of course I do. You matter to me. The admission felt huge, terrifying, real. This probably breaks about 17 HR policies, doesn't it? Probably. Blake kissed her again, softer this time. I don't care. They talked until sunrise, wrapped around each other on his office couch. Blake told her about his parents dying when he was 19, about building the company from nothing, about the loneliness that came with success. Jasmine talked about her mother's illness, about becoming Marcus's guardian at 22, about fear and hope and responsibility. I want to meet him, Blake said suddenly. Marcus, if you're comfortable with that. Jasmine's heart swelled. Really, you're important to me, Jasmine, which means your family is important to me. He traced patterns on her shoulder absently. I'm not good at relationships. I'll probably work too much and forget important dates and say the wrong thing at the wrong time. But I want to try. With you, I want to try. That's all I need. Just you trying. They kept it quiet at work. Secret smiles across conference rooms, stolen kisses in his office after everyone left, text messages that had nothing to do with business. Jasmine had never been happier. Blake was different with her, unguarded in ways that made her ache. He laughed more, relaxed more, seemed more human. He met Marcus 3 weeks into their relationship, showing up at their apartment with Chinese takeout and nervous energy Jasmine had never seen from him. So you're the famous Blake, Marcus said, studying him with teenage suspicion. The one making my sister work crazy hours. Guilty. Blake offered his hand. Though in my defense, your sister's ideas are usually worth the crazy hours. Marcus shook it, then grinned. She talks about you constantly. It's actually kind of annoying. Marcus, Jasmine's face burned. What? You do. Blake said this. Blake thinks that Blake's brilliant. Marcus mimicked her voice terribly. Blake looked pleased and tried to hide it. Dinner was easier than Jasmine expected. Blake asked Marcus about basketball, about school, about his college plans. He didn't talk down to him or treat him like a kid. When Marcus mentioned struggling with his college essay, Blake offered genuine advice about finding his authentic voice. Your sister told me you're interested in computer science, Blake said as they cleared the dishes. Yeah, but I don't know. The math requirements are intense, and with my dyslexia, Marcus shrugged, trying to look casual. Maybe I should pick something easier. Easier is boring. Blake leaned against the counter. The best developers I know think differently than everyone else. Your dyslexia means your brain processes information in unique ways. That's not a weakness in tech. That's an advantage. Marcus looked at him with something like hope. Really? Really? In fact, if you want, I could connect you with some resources. Coding boot camps designed for neurodiverse learners. Scholarship programs. Blake glanced at Jasmine. Only if that's okay with your sister. Jasmine's eyes burned with unexpected tears. That would be amazing. After Marcus went to bed, Blake pulled her close on their tiny couch. He's a good kid. You've done an incredible job with him. I'm just trying not to screw it up. You're not. He's lucky to have you. Blake kissed her temple. You're both lucky to have each other. Jasmine felt something shift in her chest, something deep and permanent. She was falling in love with Blake Thornton. Maybe had already fallen. This brilliant, broken man who was learning how to be soft, how to care, how to let someone in. 2 months into their relationship, Project Sentinel launched to massive acclaim. The tech press called it revolutionary. Accessibility advocates praised its inclusive design. Pre-orders crashed their servers within hours. Blake stood on stage at the launch event, and when he thanked his team, his eyes found Jasmine in the crowd. This project wouldn't exist in its current form without someone brave enough to challenge my assumptions, he said. Innovation requires humility. It requires listening to voices we might not always hear. Thank you to everyone who made Sentinel what it is today. The after-party was held at a rooftop venue with a view of the entire city. Jasmine wore a dress she'd bought specifically for this night, deep emerald that made her skin glow. Blake found her by the windows, champagne in hand. You look stunning, he murmured, his hand settling on her lower back. You clean up pretty well yourself. She straightened his tie unnecessarily, just for an excuse to touch him. Congratulations, Blake. You did it. We did it. He pulled her closer, not caring who saw. Their relationship was semi-public now, office gossip, but not officially announced. Come back to my place tonight. Trying to seduce me with your penthouse and city views. Is it working? Absolutely. They left the party early, unable to keep their hands off each other in the car ride. Blake's penthouse was exactly as empty as Jasmine expected, all expensive furniture and no personal touches. She made a mental note to fix that. Blake poured them wine, and they stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, wrapped in each other's arms. I never thought I could have this, he said quietly. Someone to share success with. Someone who sees me, not just what I've built. You have it now. Jasmine turned in his arms, looking up at him. You have me. I love you. The words came out rough, unpracticed. I don't know if I'm supposed to say it yet, or if there's a timeline, but I love you, Jasmine. I think I have since you tore apart my presentation and didn't even flinch when I got angry. Joy exploded through her chest. I love you too, even when you're impossibly demanding and drink sad, bitter coffee. Blake laughed, actually laughed, and kissed her until they forgot about the wine and the view and everything except each other. The next morning, Jasmine woke up in Blake's bed, sunlight streaming through windows, his arm around her waist. She felt happy in a way she'd almost forgotten existed. Safe, loved, like everything was finally falling into place. Blake was already awake, watching her with an expression so tender it made her heart ache. Good morning. Morning. She kissed him softly. I should get home. Marcus will wonder where I am. He's 16. He can survive. He's 16 and nosy. If I come home in last night's dress, I'll never hear the end of it. Blake groaned, but released her. Fine, but I'm making you breakfast first. She watched him move around his kitchen, wearing just pajama pants, his hair actually messy for once. This was her favorite version of Blake. Unguarded, relaxed, human. She pulled out her phone to check messages and noticed his laptop open on the counter. The screen had gone dark, but when she moved closer, it lit up automatically. Email was open. Jasmine wasn't trying to snoop, but her name in the subject line caught her eye. Project Authenticity Phase 2. Her blood went cold. She clicked before she could stop herself. The email chain was from 3 months ago. Blake to someone named Jennifer in HR. Find me someone who doesn't know me. Someone smart but naive. I need authentic criticism for Project Sentinel, not yes man. Jennifer's response. Found perfect candidate. Jasmine Reed. Marketing intern. No tech industry connections. Will ensure she's placed in your meeting. Blake's reply. Excellent. Make sure the mistake seems natural. I want genuine reactions. Jasmine's hands shook as she scrolled through more emails. Plans. Strategies. Every detail of their meeting orchestrated. The HR mix-up wasn't a mistake. It was calculated. She was hired specifically to challenge him, to be his unwitting consultant. Jasmine? Coffee or tea? Blake's voice came from a kitchen. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Everything, every moment, every conversation, had it all been part of his plan? The late nights working together? The way he listened to her? The vulnerability he'd shown? Jasmine. Blake walked over, smile fading when he saw her face. His eyes dropped to the laptop, and she watched him realize. Watched understanding dawn, followed by panic. Wait, let me explain. Explain what? Her voice sounded distant, wrong. That you manipulated me from day one? That everything was a lie? No, it wasn't like that. Blake reached for her, but she stepped back. Yes, I orchestrated the meeting. I wanted someone who would give me honest feedback, someone not intimidated by my reputation. But everything after what, Blake? Jasmine's voice cracked. Everything after you got what you wanted? The accessibility fixes? The inclusive design? Was I just part of the project? Another problem to solve. That's not fair. Blake's composure was cracking. You know that's not what this is. Do I? She grabbed her dress from the floor, needing to be anywhere but here. I told you about my mother, about Marcus, about my fears and dreams, and everything that matters to me. And the whole time, you were just playing some kind of game. It wasn't a game. Blake's voice rose, desperate. Yes, I brought you in for the project. Yes, I manipulated the situation. But Jasmine, everything that happened between us, everything I felt, that was real. How am I supposed to believe that? Tears streamed down her face. How am I supposed to know what was real and what was just you being brilliant and strategic? You're Blake Thornton. You're always 3 steps ahead. Maybe this was all calculated too. Make the consultant fall in love with you. Keep her invested in the project. Stop. Blake grabbed her arms, forcing her to look at him. His eyes were wild, more emotion than she'd ever seen from him. You think I planned to fall in love with you? You think I wanted this? I've spent 15 years avoiding exactly this because people are unpredictable and messy and terrifying. But you walked into my life and tore apart everything I thought I knew. Not just about the project, Jasmine. About myself. Pretty words. She jerked away from him. You're good at those. They're not just words. His voice broke. I love you. That wasn't strategy or manipulation. That was me being vulnerable for the first time in my adult life. That was me trusting someone enough to let them see who I really am. I don't even know who you really are. Jasmine pulled on her dress with shaking hands. The man I fell in love with wouldn't have lied to me for months. Wouldn't have built our entire relationship on manipulation. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you how we met. That's the same thing, Blake. She grabbed her purse, heading for the door. You knew. Every single day, you knew the truth, and you kept it from me. Did you laugh about it? Did you think it was clever? No. Blake followed her, and he looked destroyed. I was terrified. Every day, I wanted to tell you. And every day, I couldn't because I knew you'd look at me exactly the way you're looking at me right now. Like you're a stranger? Jasmine's hand was on the doorknob. Because that's what you are, Blake. I don't know you at all. Jasmine, please. He'd never begged for anything in his life, but he was begging now. Don't leave like this. Let me fix it. You can't fix this. This isn't a software problem or a design flaw. This is trust, Blake. This is everything. She opened the door. I quit. I'll email HR my resignation. Don't contact me. Don't come to my apartment. Don't try to fix this with money or connections or any of the tools you use to control everything else in your life. I don't want to control you. I want to love you. You should have thought about that before you made me into an experiment. She walked out, and the door closing behind her was the loneliest sound Blake had ever heard. The next 2 weeks were hell. Jasmine cried more than she had since her mother died. Marcus tried to help, but what could he say? She'd fallen in love with a man who'd manipulated her from the start. who'd seen her as a means to an end. Keisha brought wine and ice cream. Men are trash. Billionaires are trash with better lawyers. I really loved him, Jasmine whispered. Is that pathetic? He used me, and I still love him. It's not pathetic. It's human. Keisha hugged her. But baby, you deserve someone who's honest with you. Someone who sees you as a partner, not a tool. Jasmine knew she was right. But knowing didn't stop her heart from breaking every time her phone didn't ring. Didn't stop her from missing Blake's laugh, his rare smiles, the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the world who mattered. Blake wasn't doing any better. He stopped sleeping entirely. His assistant reported he was snapping at everyone, working himself into exhaustion. The board was concerned. His therapist, who he'd started seeing after meeting Jasmine, suggested he was self-destructing. You made a mistake, Dr. Chun said during their emergency session. A significant one. But Blake, you're using your guilt as punishment. What are you actually afraid of? That I'm exactly who she thinks I am. Blake's voice was hollow. A manipulative bastard who destroys everything he touches. Are you? I don't know anymore. 2 weeks after the confrontation, Project Sentinel's official launch event was scheduled. A massive press conference, investors, industry leaders. Blake was supposed to present the product's success, announce their expansion plans. It was the culmination of 5 years of work. He stood backstage, staring at his prepared remarks, and realized he couldn't do it. Couldn't stand there and take credit for something that wouldn't exist without Jasmine. Couldn't pretend everything was fine when his world had collapsed. Patricia found him. Mr. Thornton, 5 minutes. Change of plans. Blake grabbed a pen, started writing. I'm going off script. Sir, the board specifically approved. I don't care what the board approved. Blake looked at her. Patricia, have I ever done the right thing for the wrong reasons? She considered him carefully. Frequently. Then it's time I did the right thing for the right reasons. He walked on stage to thunderous applause. Investors, press, tech leaders, all waiting to hear about Thornton Industries' latest triumph. Blake stepped to the podium, looked out at the crowd, and saw Jasmine in the back row. She was partially hidden behind a column, but she was there, watching. Their eyes met, and Blake made his choice. I need to tell you about Jasmine Reed, he began, and watched her eyes widen in shock. 5 months ago, I orchestrated a situation to bring her into my life. I manipulated circumstances because I wanted authentic feedback on Project Sentinel, and I thought I was clever enough to control the outcome. The crowd murmured, confused. Blake's board members looked panicked. I was wrong. You can't control people. You can't manipulate your way to genuine connection. Jasmine didn't just improve this project. She changed everything. She taught me that innovation requires humility, that leadership requires vulnerability, that success means nothing if you achieve it by using people. He pulled out his phone, projecting Jasmine's original presentation onto the screen behind him. Every accessibility feature in Project Sentinel exists because Jasmine Reed was brave enough to challenge me. Every inclusive design choice happened because she refused to accept that excluding people was acceptable. This product should have her name on it, not mine. Blake's voice strengthened. I'm announcing the Reed Accessibility Foundation, endowed with $50 million. Full college scholarships for 100 students annually, prioritizing neurodiverse learners and students from underrepresented communities. Starting with Marcus Reed, Jasmine's brother. Jasmine's hand covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Jasmine, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I manipulated you. I lied by omission. I broke your trust in ways I can't fully repair. But I can try to become the man you believed I could be. Not for another chance at a relationship, though I want that more than anything. Just because you were right about me. I was living half a life, and I didn't even realize it until you showed me what being fully human could look like. He stepped away from the podium. I can't undo what I did, but I can commit to being better, to being honest, to valuing people over outcomes. That's the legacy I want Project Sentinel to have. That's the legacy I want to build. The crowd was silent, shocked. Blake didn't care. He walked off stage, ignoring his frantic board members, and found Jasmine waiting in the wings. She was crying, mascara running, more beautiful than anything he'd ever seen. That was the most public apology in history, she said, voice shaking. You deserve a grand gesture. You deserve everything. Blake kept his distance, not reaching for her. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for another chance. I just needed you to know that loving you changed me, made me better, and I'm going to keep trying to be that better person, whether you're in my life or not. Jasmine wiped her eyes. You're an idiot. I know. You broke my heart. I know. Blake's voice cracked. I'm so sorry, Jasmine. I would take it back if I could. All of it. I'd tell you the truth from day one. I'm not promising anything, Jasmine said, echoing his word from months ago. But Blake, you can start by buying me coffee. And this time, you better get it right. Hope bloomed in his chest. Always get it right. Cream and sugar, from the place 3 blocks away. You remembered. I remember everything about you. Blake took a tentative step closer. Can I hug you? Or is that too much? Jasmine closed the distance between them, wrapping her arms around his waist. Blake held her like she was oxygen, like she was everything. I love you, he whispered into her hair. I'll spend the rest of my life proving that to you. Good, because I love you too, even though you're infuriating and manipulative and terrible at emotions. I'm working on that. Dr. Chun says I'm making progress. You're seeing a therapist? I'm seeing a therapist. Blake pulled back to look at her. You made me want to be better, Jasmine. Not just for you. For myself. For Marcus. For everyone I've hurt by being too scared to be vulnerable. 6 months later, Blake and Jasmine stood together at a tech conference, presenting on inclusive design principles. Their hands were intertwined, their partnership both professional and deeply personal. Marcus was in the front row, college acceptance letters in hand, his future bright. Some connections are worth fighting for, Jasmine said to the crowd. Some people are worth the risk of getting hurt. And sometimes, the scariest thing we can do is let someone see who we really are. Blake squeezed her hand as she squeezed back. They'd both been scared, both been broken, but together, they'd learned what it meant to be whole. If you felt anything while listening to this story, if it made your heart race, made you smile, or reminded you that real love still exists, don't keep it to yourself. Hit the like button to support the channel, subscribe so you never miss a new romance story, and turn on notifications to stay close to every heartbeat, every twist, every unforgettable love. And I want to hear from you. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Your city, your country, your corner of the world. Your support helps this channel grow, and your comments inspire the next love story.